Welcome back to the Start and Scale podcast. I'm your host, Jack Brandwood, and this is the place where we're speaking with people who are starting and scaling tech businesses. We are talking with founders, investors, and everyone in between. This week, I sit down with Mark Kuhillow, exited founder and advisor, and we discuss everything from what is product market fit and how to find it, metrics you should be measuring, and what to do if you don't know how to sell.
I was forced to use data to validate every decision that we ever made.
I hope you enjoy the episode. Mark, thank you for coming on.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks for having me here, rather.
Yeah. Thanks for coming down. Well, we're talking initially about you, the first person that's ever had Grantee's coffee in the studio. So it's the studio, it's the meeting room. Let's be honest.
I'm going with studio. Grantee's coffee, very good. Absolutely shocked that it's cost me £4.55 for a coffee. Oh, that's what the world has come to.
Grantee, sort it out. Mark, always like to start these things off with a quite deep question.
Yes.
Who is Mark?
Who is Mark?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a really tough one. Right. As with everything, I'll go with some lists. Dad, husband, neurodivergent, friend, passionate.
Wow, fantastic. That's great. I've never heard anyone go through a list like that. That's brilliant.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's my top five. That's my top 5 insights about me.
What are you passionate about?
Oh my God, what am I passionate about? Anything that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about what interests me. I am passionate about, well, probably all those 5 things actually. If I sort of put a lens on it as to what I'm passionate about today, definitely passionate about tech. Always have been. Love technology. Definitely passionate about helping others. That's massive, and that's a part that I've learned in the latter, more recent part of my career since my exit, actually. And I'm passionate about where those two meet, to be honest with you, where tech can meet helping people within tech, using tech, all sorts of different things.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about it numerous times about exactly that, your passion to help your founders. Talked about your story of exiting your previous business, which we will definitely get to.
Yeah.
Talk about your new business, Trimontium, again, which we want to talk about.
Yeah.
You weren't always a founder, advisor,
No, I wasn't.
Dad, etc. What did you want to be when you grew up? And the reason I'm asking that question because I want you to draw it, hopefully. And look, for us at Tact, our vision is to create a world where everyone gets their dream job, right? So, yes.
Okay, I'm going to tie some really random strands together here, and I think thanks so much for this. Right. Okay, so what you've got is really small me, and by the way, I can't draw to save my life. Right. So we've got little me, so that's me. So we're going to sort of go with me, sort of under the age of 5, and what we're going to go with here is I want to be a pilot.
Nice.
Wanted to be able to fly away, do whatever I wanted, just wanted to be a pilot. There's probably some sort of astronaut thing happening there as well. Right, then you've got me who's sort of growing up slightly more, who then, so we're now going to sort of say 15 years old, wants to be a barrister. Why do I want to be a barrister? Love negotiating, constructing an argument, and sadly winning. You're not a very good barrister if you can't win. So wanted to do that, then realised that there was just no way I was ever, we were saying before that I can't actually sit and read a book. Studying law, not happening for me. So then little me sort of becomes slightly bigger me, so we're growing now still, and I'm now going to say 21 years old, salesman. Again, we can talk about that. So wanted to be a salesman because I wanted to go into the commercial world and like relating to people, like developing some empathy, liked earning money. In my opinion, the salespeople will always earn the most money in any given business. So what you end up with is sort of, I think there's somewhere in here, some weird journey which leads to an entrepreneur.
Wow.
That is probably like nobody else has done that before.
No, it hasn't. But that's...
I didn't know if I spelled that correctly.
No. But it's fine. There we go. That does say entrepreneur at the end.
Yes.
That was, and you lived your dream.
We got there.
Yeah.
Hard work and luck.
Yeah. And would you say you found your dream job?
Yeah, definitely. And I say this to my kids, and my kids will now say this to anybody who listens to you, listens to them rather. Find a job that you love, and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
And I can see that in you. You know, from the limited amounts of exposure we've had, I can see that you love your business. What you guys do is brilliant, and you exude, fun.
Yeah.
And it's got to be fun.
I appreciate that.
If it's not fun, then what's the point?
Yeah, right. You spend a third of your life probably at work. If you don't enjoy the people you work with, you don't enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
What's the point?
And I think that's the difference, which the 1%, and I'm 99% of the world will just. I never know if it's work to live or live to work. There's one way around it goes, but 99% of the world do that. And then I think there's 1% of us who've actually worked out that you can actually flip the paradigm. And if you can make it work for you. And again, this is the kind of thing that I talk about. And again, trying to still with my kids. I'm talking about my kids a lot today. But same for you guys. You've worked out that you can make the business world work for your aims as opposed to just fitting into the machine and,
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is. And we have to remind ourselves, I mean, Harry's sat over there, we have to remind ourselves all the time is, we'll be in sometimes having a right laugh and we're talking about something quite serious about the business and whatever. And then we can look at each other and go, I love this. Our job's amazing. It's great. And then we think, there's a lot of people coming on a Sunday terrified of going to work and thinking, oh my God, I hate my job. I wish I could do something else. Why can't I do this? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
They do that for 40 years.
Yeah.
And then retire with a heap of anxiety and think, oh God, why didn't I do something about it?
Totally.
Yeah.
What is it that gets you guys out of bed then? Why do you love it?
Oh, you know what? For me, the reason that I had a really kind of weird, squiggly career into recruitment. I always struggled to find out what I wanted to do. I worked in the market as a butcher, on Bury and Bolton Market. Yep.
Is that where you're from?
I'm from Bury / Bolton.
Oh, okay.
Well, Rammy, technically.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah. But moved around bits of. But are you from Bury?
Whitefield.
Oh, are you?
I'm actually from Prestwich, actually. I didn't want to say Whitefield. Moved up to Whitefield.
But a similar area, though,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. My dad's originally from Whitefield.
Okay.
Best of the Barn.
Right, fine. That's in between the two.
In between,
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then I always really struggled to find out what I wanted to do. I was a butcher, did various sales jobs. I was selling pamper days for people on the streets of Manchester. Awful job, freezing cold in winter.
Oh, this is brilliant. We've got shared background.
Yeah, door knocking,
I've
selling
done
windows,
door knocking.
doors.
I've worked out of a house in Moss Side selling leaflets to local businesses, which generally would have ended up in the bin. Advertising in student handbooks.
Perfect.
I think the best one was selling to fencing contractors in the Doncaster Metropolitan Borough Building Control Handbook.
Whoa.
That's my claim to fame.
Whoa. But it's all so good for you, do you not think? I mean, like...
It's brilliant. It gives you grit.
Yes.
I mean, if you start there and you're a butcher and you've done door knocking, you get grit. In fact, I wrote that on someone's LinkedIn profile yesterday, a lad who was in our accelerator who's running a food stand at festivals to be able to fund his startup.
Whoa.
And, that's grit.
Wow, love that. Yeah.
I love that.
And it's, and again, I think as soon as you've done those tougher jobs, like you said, your knuckles are hurting from knocking on doors all day and then someone puts you in a nice warm office with a phone and a computer and says, right, start selling to people. And it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
I can go and get a coffee and go to the toilet when I want and these sorts of things. All of a sudden, in comparison, your job's actually pretty cushy. And I think it's very, very good for you, really. But I really struggled finding out what I wanted to do. So I did all these different jobs.
Yeah.
And
university?
Went to university and dropped out.
Okay.
And because I did enjoy it, but the time was the right time for me. And then just blagged my way into a recruitment job. And
Brilliant.
Then it was weird. I was this guy who always struggled to find out what I wanted to do for a job.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm in a job now helping other people find out what they wanted to do.
Did you have an inner belief that you were great? Special?
Doesn't everybody?
I don't know if everybody does, to be honest with you.
No? That's quite sad to hear. I hope they do.
I hope they do.
Yeah.
But I was like you. I was meandering. I didn't know. And then somebody was kind enough to give me a great break. And that was when I got into sales working for Auto Trader. But I did have that inner belief that I was capable of great things if I put my mind to them.
And yeah, well, and that's a great segue, right? Into finding out a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
How did you become who you are now? What's been the journey? The look on your face is like, whoa, where do I start?
That's a biggie. What's the journey? The journey at a really high level was, as we were just saying, no qualifications. Got into telesales for Auto Trader. That got me into a career in media. There was obviously something subliminal in there because my dad's a journalist and my grandfather's photographer, newspaper photographer at Fleet Street. So there's sort of a media thing that happens in our family, I think. Got into advertising. That got me into media at about the time when sort of the internet was happening. I then got a job, blagged a job onto the graduate training program over at WPP Mindshare. Did that for 3 years, then got headhunted by Starcom MediaVest to do, again, just broadcast planner by now, TV buyer. I was the only person in the agency, I don't know when this was, late 90s? I don't know, I'm old now. I was the only person in the agency buying web space. So I was getting it bundled in from ITV. And funnily enough, I was buying it for Co-op funeral services. And what the managing partner walks past my desk one day and he's like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "This is the internet." And he said, "All right, well, that looks really cool. Why don't you do that instead of buying TV airtime?" And I said, I could do that. And I remember saying to him, "If the internet doesn't catch on, though, do I get my job back?" And he was like, "Yeah, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it." 4 years later, I was running a big division, making well into 7-figure profit. I asked for equity. I was told no. So I quit and started my own agency. And myself and Colin launched ROI, which was an affiliate management agency. In fact, I sent Colin the screenshot from Company's House yesterday. We literally formed the business 20 years ago next week.
Oh my God.
Which makes me, again, feel... But yeah, that the potted history, that's the journey. And then we set up doing affiliate management. 10 years ago, I took a sabbatical from the business, put an MD in there and wanted to get into tech. So I did a tech startup. We took £1 million worth of venture money into the business. And we bought some software which wholesaled mobile websites. So this was before HTML5 had happened. So all these websites, when you pick up your phone, they were all really small and unusable. So we bought a piece of software which converted the websites. We're a little bit early for our time, and that was one of my learnings. You can be too early. We ended up exiting the business to one of our clients. And then I went back into ROI, and basically myself and my super talented CTO, we used to go and see clients and say, "What do you want building that you can't get built internally?" We'd build it for them. We'd give them a POC. If it worked, we took it to market. And that's sort of how SingleView was born, because we needed an in-house trading platform. And it turned out that the trading tool we built for our own purposes at the time addressed a deficiency in Google Analytics called multi-touch attribution. And well, it went well. And then we had a pandemic, which meant nobody could actually measure any of their e-commerce transactions or traction. And we exited the business. We sold the agency to Acceleration Partners in America, and we sold the tech to Awin. And I then spent 2 years working with Awin, rolling it out globally. I think when we went into Awin, there was probably 30 odd instances on the platform, and I think today there's about 6,000. So it was an absolute privilege doing a global rollout within a tech business and understanding how, now looking back on it, knowing how to do that. It's been an interesting journey, and I don't really see it as being the end by any margin.
What was it like the moment the funds were transferred or the document was signed? What did that feel like?
Do you know something? It was really interesting because we sold in COVID. So I'm literally sat, normally you'd be all sat around a table and it goes on till 3 a.m. and you're all signing and all these things are going on. But it was all happening virtually. So I had 3 screens around me, and literally there's documents, and it was particularly complicated because we ran 2 parallel transactions. So we were selling the agency and we sold the tech, and it got to the point that both of the transactions were completely inextricably linked. One couldn't happen without the other. So we actually had double the work going on, and we had all the screens going on, and it was nice. My family was sat around me, and there was emails flying in here, and then you're getting all the DocuSigns. Right, we've got these set of documents that are signed, and then those set of documents that are signed, and then all of it. And then the thing is, because you're at home, it's like, oh right, okay, well I'll go and mow the lawn. We just sold the business. So yeah, it was weird doing it in that environment because normally you have these sort of high octane, middle of the night, 3 a.m. things that everybody then leaves totally screwed and cracks open the champagne. Wasn't like that, but it was brilliant. When the money lands, that's mental. Because I remember my wife came up to me and she showed me a phone, and you get it just sort of landed on you get the alert on your home screen just to say there's been a deposit, and we're like,
oh my god,
that's weird. So yeah. Anyway.
Wow. Since that moment, how long ago was it?
That was 3.5 years ago.
3.5 years ago. How have you gone about trying to figure out what you want to do next? How did that happen, that journey?
Okay, well, as with anything with me, it happened. It happened. What did I do? So it was 3.5 years ago. 2 years of it was spent on the earn-out. So it's actually been 18 months in the wild. And one of the things that happened to me, which again, you just don't see these things coming. And one of the big things I'm going to talk about today is just giving. Yeah. So what happened was I got approached by the Exchange to ask me if I wanted to be entrepreneur in residence. Entrepreneur in residence, world's worst job title, especially for somebody who doesn't have much of an ego. But I did it because being really honest with you, because I didn't know if I'd be a decent non-exec. The logical thing to do for me is to become a non-exec. Would I be a decent non-exec? I don't know. So I thought, if I do it for free, there's only so much you can go wrong, and you're not going to upset too many people. So I took up this EIR role at the Exchange, and it's now been almost 2 years. I'm about to onboard my 4th cohort or 5th. I don't know how many I've worked with. Completely blindsided me. It's amazing to help people. And I don't mean that to be trite, and we were saying this. Over 20 years of running an ad agency, which isn't the easiest of businesses to run. It's a business which is predicated on emotion at both ends of the scale. You've got employees here who will do what employees do, and you've got clients here who will just wake up one day and go, well, we've got a new client, so we're changing agency. There's no process, there's no product, there's no structure. It's a difficult model to ride. It's been very good to me, and I definitely won't be complaining, but there was a real reason why I was consciously looking to pivot into tech, because it's difficult. So I've got a lot of scars. It's like any business. And the way that I articulate this is businesses ups and downs. When you actually have a look, and there will be more downs than ups. That's life. When you net it out, if the delta of the peaks, the gain of the peaks is greater than all of the troughs on your trend line, you've done all right, and you've been lucky. That's where I am, and I would say I am lucky. But there's a lot of scar tissue, and I find hanging around these startups, it helps them because I've got a fair bit of experience, and there's just a lot of self-healing shit going on. So it's great to give. So I started doing that. Then I started doing angel investing. Then I got back in touch with my old guys, and I said, guys, I don't understand why I'm investing in these startups. Why? What's different? Can we build some sort of scoring algorithm, some scoring model? So we did that. And then unashamedly, I don't really want to employ too many staff anymore. It's one of the decisions that I've made. So then it led us to say, well, can we just spin up an AI to do that for us? And then before we know it, we were an AI first business. And again, having fun, delivering value, and as well as when we're scoring when we're scoring all these startups, the output of the software, that the platform that we've built, gives the founders a value creation plan and says, this is what we think of your business. We've had a look at your product market fit, we've had a look at your go-to-market, we've had a look at your strategic value proposition. This is what we think you should do. Because I see this all the time, and I've been totally guilty of this, and you're probably guilty of this too. In order to be a founder, you've got to believe your own bullshit. Otherwise, it comes back to my 99% of the world. Most people just quite happy to receive a paycheck and just have safety and security. We don't. And in order to believe your own bullshit, it's sometimes one of the books that I've read, and I think really Matthew Syed really switched me on to the concept of cognitive dissonance, which is you just not wanting to believe what is blatantly staring you in the face. It's like, my son's going to be a doctor. Well, actually, he's not going to be a doctor. He's actually sort of averagely intelligent and has absolutely no interest in science whatsoever. No, it's all right. He's going to be a doctor. He's going to be brilliant. Well, I see that a lot in founders, which is, we're just going to do this and it's going to happen. And what we do is we just hold a mirror up to them with kindness and say, not quite sure you're where you'll think you'll want to be. And you've got to be really careful with founders, because you don't want to put too big a hole in their balloon and burst their bubble, because they need a lot of that comfort to do what they do. So it's, how do you support them? How do you steer them? How do you give them data? How do you give them information? And how do you help them? And that is what became my latest venture, Trimontium, after swearing absolutely blind to my wife that I would never, ever, ever do another startup. It's what I know.
So from what you said there, that was fantastic, by the way. What you said there is you need to earn a lot of money in order to so you can give it all away, basically. Same with your time. You need to earn all your time back so you can give it all away, more or less.
Yeah.
But that was really interesting that you said there about is holding a mirror up in front of these founders and being like, hey, I guess a lot of founders are emotionally attached to their businesses, right? Yeah. Obviously. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
You've got to be emotional. But I mean, my previous business, my NCART, which we exited, you've got to know when to walk. I mean, we were too early, and I knew that we would have got there. There was no doubt about it. We would have got there. The mobile adoption curve was going up there, and it was, we could just plot it. I mean, I knew we wouldn't hit critical mass for 5-6 years. I wasn't going to dilute for 5-6 years and end up with whatever and sort of kill myself for that. So I knew then it was time to go. What was the question again?
About being emotionally attached.
So that was it. I was hugely emotionally attached, but I was able to say goodbye. And I think founders, I think founders need, look, nobody. I was on the phone to a private equity firm the other day who talking about a business that doesn't currently have an MD. It needs somebody in there who's emotionally invested, as much as one can be, who's thinking about the business 24/7. You're either out the business, you're in the business. But I think founders have got to be. We've got to nurture them and help them to be realistic about where their business is up to, because there's sometimes a disconnect between their perception and reality, and unless those two align, we could struggle to help them realize their goals.
But I guess that's where your business comes in, right, Trimontium? If you're able to offer them a very kind of black and white, hey, you've given us information, this is what we've got.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea or anything like that. I'm just saying, hey, this is the information we've got, right? So do with it what you will. But then from a founder's perspective, I guess if you have a founder who has fallen in love with the problem they're trying to solve rather than just make a load of money and exit, is that a good thing, do you think?
Okay, so a couple of things there that I'm going to pick up on. Firstly, if the founder has a problem that they're trying to solve, that's fine. Quite often I see founders with a solution looking for a problem. That is a very, very different solution. very different, not a very different solution, a very different scenario. If there's a real problem, then we're fine. But sometimes, I want to create a business that's doing, I don't know, pink cups for grantees because it would look nice. Well, is that really a problem? So I think firstly, we just need to make sure that we're coming at it the right way. And secondly, if you're chasing the checks, I don't think I've always been a huge believer if you do a great job, your value prop meets a real world need, then the business will do well. And if the business does well, revenue follows. And if revenue follows, we're building value. And if we're building enterprise value, if we want to achieve a transaction, that's fine. If we want to, die at 95 and pass the business on to our kids, that's fine too. But I strongly believe if you do an amazing job and it delivers value, everything else follows.
That's brilliant. And you said something there about, let's say die 95 and hand the business over, whatever. You have to exit your business at some point, right?
Yes.
Whether it's to sell or to, in a coffin or whatever.
Something has to happen to it, yeah.
Something has to happen, right? So you kind of have to have the fact that you are going to exit in mind, you said, but fall in love with the problem, not the solution.
And again, I talked to lots of founders about this. In fact, I was on a track in Sten last week. Was it this week? Last week at Dish. And for me, it's all about the why. You guys, why'd you do it? Why did you set the business up? Very few people say to me, I set this business up because I want to be rich and I just sort of thought I'd do that. Most people will say, I was loosely in the sector, I was deeply in the sector, and there was a problem, and I thought we could solve it, and X happened and Y happened, and all these things, and we ended up doing this, and this is how the business came about, and that knits into a previous point you mentioned, which is passion. So problem, passion, action.
Oh, that's a great tagline. Love that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'll let you have that one.
Thank you very much. And yet to answer your question, the way we did it is we set it up just to make a bit of money, basically.
Oh, okay. So that completely flips everything that I've just said.
Well, initially,
Yeah.
but as we did it, we found people loved what we did, and then all of a sudden we're like, hang on, why do people love working with us over everybody? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, we're just doing our job. And we realized we fill jobs way quicker than anybody else in the sector. And then we're like, okay, that's interesting. And then we set our business up to accommodate that. And then we realized, oh my God, that's our big differentiator. We've got something here, a bit of something that if you put us next to another agency, we could be like, oh no, we fill jobs in an average of 6 days though.
Yeah.
What's your average fill time?
6 days.
6 days, yeah, 6 days.
Tech.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm impressed.
That's it. Thank you very much. And that's because of the way we set up and our processes and all these sorts of things. We worked very, very hard on and iterated on continuously. But yeah, so we kind of did it initially just to earn a bit of extra cash, and then accidentally stumbled across this whole, oh my God, yeah, this is our thing.
Yeah. Well, look, we all ultimately get out of bed to pay the bills.
Sure.
You know what I mean,
yeah.
So I get that. But what you said there was interesting. It was the iteration. You don't just do it and then say, this is what we do. You're passionate about what you do. So you iterate and you iterate and you iterate and you iterate. And you end up with a really nice, well-oiled machine. Because you're passionate and because you care and because you probably want to exit. So you've got a plan and you've got, you've got mid-term targets, short-term plans. And, those are your milestones. You've got non-execs.
And we have someone who helps us out, yeah.
So there you go. Yeah. So you've got guidance. You've got somebody who's helping you with a plan. And my guess is you know where you're going. Again, one of my I learned this when at night school. Auto Trader put me onto a night school course. It was some diploma in marketing. If you don't know where you're going, all roads lead to nowhere.
Yeah.
If you
don't know which port you're sailing to, no wind is favourable. It's exactly.
Fail to plan to fail.
There you go. Perfect. But you've lived such an interesting life. But do you feel like you must look back and it must get you quite emotional, right? Looking back, all the things you've done that have led you to where you are now.
To be honest with you, I really struggle. And again, this is some sort of like childhood thing, which probably comes from growing up in the 80s with ADHD and nobody understanding stuff like that and being really misunderstood at school. I struggle to give myself any credit for it, which means you just keep going on this flywheel, which is now at this point in my life, just, being 50 this year was a real reflection for me of just sitting back and saying, you don't quite need to keep kicking so hard at the wheel. It's a work in progress.
When did you find out you had ADHD, if you don't mind me asking?
Really recently. When I say really recently, not like in the last 10 minutes. I've got 3 boys. My youngest is now 15, and I was filling out the forms for him 7, 8 years ago. He has it. I say it's a superpower. It enables him to achieve things other people can't, and it's enabled me to achieve things that other people can't. But I was filling out the forms for him about 7, 8 years ago, and I was going, right, okay, zoning out. Hang on, well, isn't that normal? Like, to be watching that sort of like feather blowing across the window that I'm looking at you now, but actually thinking, where's it going? And I went through it all, and then I sort of thought, hang on a minute, this is me. So I then went to just sort of rang the NHS and said, can you diagnose me as well, please? And it came back as being a poster child.
Whoa. How did that feel? Because
well, it made a huge amount of sense, to be honest with you, because I always describe myself as, look, I'm the strategic guy in the room, and I would always describe it as I join the dots that other people can't see. I'm not the best guy at delivering them. In fact, I'm absolutely the worst guy at delivering them. But that's why I've always had operational teams. And then you sort of start to realize stuff like, I was running a media agency for 20 years. I've written a lot of presentations. I used to get into the office at 5 a.m. and write them in the dark, well, if it was winter, knowing that I had until 9 o'clock when everyone arrived to finish my deck. What I didn't, and I just thought that's the way it is. I just write decks in the middle of the night in the office. I didn't realize until I got my diagnosis that that's because the minute everybody arrives, I get distracted. And I'm like, hey, people, let's go talk to anybody and do anything other than something boring. So I then started to realize all these sort of scaffolding and support structures I've put up for myself. But I couldn't do what I've done without if I wasn't neurodivergent. And that's why so many entrepreneurs are. It's a statistical fact.
Wow.
But we need neurotypical people around us to help us execute.
Wow. Okay. But did you feel like a weight's been lifted? But it must have, answered a lot of questions.
It sort of switched a few lights on in the room. It's sort of like, oh, okay, I get that now.
Wow. This is a bit of a segue, really, but I really wanted to talk to you about product market fit.
Yeah.
Big buzzword.
Yeah.
You are very passionate about it.
Yeah.
You're an advisor for it.
Yeah.
What is product market fit, if you had to explain it?
God. What is product market fit? There's an A16Z paper which Mark Andreessen, I never know how to pronounce his name, wrote quite a while ago, about 15 years ago, which breaks PMF down into about 16 metrics. And there's one that gets me. When you can't make your product fast enough for it to stay on the shelf. And that is the one which I always start to look for. People talk about PMF and the stages before product market fit, like founder market fit. So yes, does the founder work? Can the founder raise and all that sort of stuff? So we sort of deal with founder market fit, and we get like a friends and family out the way. Yes, everyone believes in Jack. It's all great. He's worth a punt. At what point do we then move on and say, right, we've actually got a business which is starting to get traction? And the thing is, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, revenue is not the metric. It's too early for revenue when you're looking at early stages of PMF. And I learned a lot about this, actually, building the software that we built. And also I learned a lot about this when I was actually with Awin. It's understanding those softer data points which show you how your customers feel about your product and how your customers are using your product, which might predate revenue. Are people, are they logging in? Are they, in your case, are you getting briefs? Are you getting briefs repeatedly? Are the candidates that you're finding staying in the roles, or are we just, not really finding the stickiest, the stickiest solutions to the problem? And it's having, again, comes back to another book which I once was passionate about. I mean, we talked about, lean startup. It's all about the data. And it's understanding what we can use as proxies for success at the early stages of the PMF. Are people talking about our products? How are we measuring that they're talking about our product? Are we getting referrals about a product? If we're getting referrals, what does the pipeline look like? And are people staying in it? And it's about identifying what the leading metrics are way, 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 way further up the funnel than revenue. Does that make sense? That's how we metricize PMF, and we look at all the intangibles which you would not see in a set of management accounts.
So that's interesting. So, and even before that, you have to validate your idea, right? And does that validating of the idea come into finding your PMF?
Completely. I mean, this comes back to my earlier point of black box thinking. My ex-CTO used to say something to me, and he's a smart lad. He used to say to me, because I would go into a meeting and I would come out and say, right, we need to develop this. And he would, whatever the most recent meeting was, you can guarantee it was the most important feature that, we'd ever needed and was going to change our lives. He would not code anything if I asked him to create something which started with the words, I think.
Okay.
He was like, no, give me some data. And James, he just, he wouldn't take the brief, which was brilliant. So I was forced to use data to validate every decision that we ever made. And that really transcends through everything I do now. And again, it blows sort of cognitive dissonance out the water, because if you're using data, it's immutable. You can't disagree with it. So here's a feature that I want. Well, okay, I think it's brilliant. Well, have our customers asked for it? No, not a single one. However, 5 of our customers have asked for this feature, but it's not really what we want to do. Well, how about let's just listen to them, because we might be getting a whiff of product market fit in somewhere that we didn't think where we would. Like, for example, I was saying to you, we've launched Trimontium, which helps startups. But one of the interesting things is quite a lot of my old contacts have rung me and said, can you help us build AI process automation tools for media agencies? Because you know how to actually put tech into a media agency. I could very easily have said, no, that's definite product market fit. We're getting referrals, we're getting inbounds. Sometimes it's just being able to see the signs as opposed to just saying, no, we're just going this way.
Yeah, you know what? That resonates with me so much, because I, and Harry, again, he's behind the camera, will vouch for this. If I had an idea, I would get very emotionally attached to it. And it would be like, it's amazing. I do this big pitch, and they go, cool, but like, why though? Like, it doesn't make, and I wouldn't be able to prove it, and then I'd get really bratty, and I'd get embarrassingly so, and then I'd come back like half an hour later and be like, guys, I'm really sorry about that. I just got really in my own head about it. But something we've been doing more and more recently is literally what you just said there, is coming with this great pitch and all that sort of thing, but also being like, oh, by the way, this is why I think this is why I think I can prove we should do this. And totally. It might be, there's a difference between cause and causation, obviously, but this is what I think this means. I'm theorizing, but what do you guys think? And it makes things so much easier and quicker and more efficient, because then you're not just throwing ideas around and getting lost in the ether.
It's how mistakes are made. I mean, what we're either burning time, money, or both. We can reduce the risk there by being really honest with ourselves about to use data to validate every single decision we make. And that is, I mean, that's something I'm absolutely evangelical about with the founders that I work with my co-founders. If we have to use data to validate.
What are some, and you mentioned some there, but what are some of the key metrics business owners and founders should look at regularly, do you think?
Every business will have its own leading metrics. What aside from roles filled, what are yours? I mean, what do you track?
I mean, roles filled, time to fill is a big one.
Yeah.
How long someone stays in a role on average. A big one that we've been doing recently is our vision is to create a world where everyone gets their dream job. Super cheesy, but really believe in it. And every year we'll send a survey out to say how integral basically were we in finding you your dream job. And we use that as our kind of like North Star every year. Then we say, well, this year I think it was like 88%, which is, a dream job is a big.
Is this candidates or is this employers?
This is candidates.
Okay. Do you do it for employers?
We do an MPS, which is about 92. Last time we did it, so world class technically.
We'll take that.
Yeah. So some promoters there that we need to get in touch with, but the candidates, the candidate side for us, that's our North Star because that's our entire vision, right? So it's like 88% this year said that we were responsible for finding their dream job. Next year we want to get it 90 plus and work to that 100% marker. That's the plan.
So strategy and tactics. The strategy is we're going to London. The tactics are we cycling? Are we walking? Are we driving? Okay, we're driving. Are we going down the M6? We're going down the M40. Those are the tactics. So your North Star is your MPS score or whatever the equivalent metric is for employers. But in order to get there, we actually need a series of metrics which are actionable along the way. So I then sort of pull back, and that's perfectly cool. But I then pull back and say to you, well, what are we measuring every month? How are we measuring the quality of the pipeline? So, and how do you measure the quality, and how big is the pipeline? So is the pipeline that we've got enough? Are the conversion metrics within the pipeline going to deliver the plan, which is going to get us to where we need to be, which improves your score from 92% to 94% or whatever we want it. So what I'd say, and I'm sure you've got the answers to this, what are the metrics which you report on each month which show how you're succeeding qualitatively in a metricized manner rather than quantitatively saying this many roles, this is the revenue this month?
Oh, yeah, I love that. I'm such a big data geek at the minute, especially. So things like that, just
There will be stuff that you're measuring.
Yes. Yeah, there is. I'll be able to say off the top of my head.
No, that's fine.
Only because, and I'll embarrassingly so, this is something that we're still in the early days of. So, I couldn't say off the top of my head.
So to go back to your earlier question of what's PMF, this is what we're talking about. What are the leading metrics or the leading indicators for your business which we can quantify, which are qualitative as well as quantitative, that we can use to measure success and inform our decision making, which is leading us to drive towards our North Star. And I love your North Star. You've metricized success. That's brilliant. How do we actually sort of break that down? And again, another shocking analogy, but it's one James and I used to use all the time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Love that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Kelly Waters' agile software methodology. Yeah, and that's one other point. I'm a non-technical tech founder. Understanding how agile really works and the difference between that and how we used to code, which was using waterfall, where you always miss every deadline and nothing ever happens on time and it's always runs over. Moving to the metrics-driven agile model was transformational in terms of helping me understand how to run a tech business.
What was it like being a non-technical founder founding a tech business?
In some ways, possibly easier. In some ways, possibly harder. I've always worked on a basis that anything is achievable. You just need to spend enough time on it, which gives you a really blissful sense of ignorance. So I would come out of meetings, just go, easy. We'll just dev that out. And somebody goes, you've actually got no idea what you've just suggested. It requires re-architecting an entire data set, a data lake system, whatever. So I think that level of blind ignorance, again, it plays into entrepreneurs believing your own bullshit. If you don't really understand the true impact of what you're thinking of achieving, then you're going to put it on the table. Whereas if you did know, you would just never suggest it in the first place. And I think that would stifle innovation. I'd rather make promises that I can't deliver and then have to go back because of whatever reason. Otherwise, if you don't dream big, you're never going to get there. So I think the lack of knowledge and ignorance actually helps on that one.
Fantastic. I like that. Yeah.
If you've got an amazing CTO and you operate in a truly collaborative way.
Yeah, why be realistic? How boring. Right.
Totally.
You advise founders day to day, and I know we talked a lot about product market fit, validating your idea, and your journey as well. Is there a particular mistake you see founders make early days that you think is avoidable?
I've gone quiet because I'm thinking, and I'm thinking about whether or not to raise this one. But this is there's a glamour attached to being a founder, and we were talking about your business, and it flashed across my mind before, but I didn't say it. We're super through nothing other than pure serendipity. We live in Manchester, where there is an amazing tech scene. If you had just happened to have been born in some random place, I'm just going to say Lincoln, you'd probably struggle to have created a tech business that's placing people within 6 days and doing amazing things, because the market just isn't there. So we're in Manchester. We've got this amazingly vibrant tech scene. If you want to, you could go to 45 events a week. And I sometimes get slightly skeptical about founders who are more into the scene than their businesses. And I see this a lot. And I mean, it's so easy to become addicted to the next raise, or even worse than that, a constant raise, because it's such a phenomenal distraction. And if I'm being honest, being a founder and achieving your MVP, your product market fit, and then you scale up, that's really hard. And fundraising is really hard too. In certain worlds, fundraising is actually easier than unlocking that horrendously complex paradox, which will see your business grow and flourish. And I do challenge quite a few founders and just sort of say, let's just think about the business here.
Yeah, I've seen so much about that on LinkedIn and everywhere recently, about how it seems, and this is my words, someone said this, but it seems that there's quite a lot of business out there at the minute that are just like fundraising machines rather than actual businesses. And someone put, I can't remember who it was, but they said, focus on leads and making sales, and then everything else will follow. That will push features, that will make you iterate on your product, that will allow you to raise the right amount of funds because people won't be able to ignore you. Like, all these things will come out the back of it, right? What do you think?
Focus on your leading metrics. That's what we were just saying. Totally agree with you. It's not about the glamour of being a founder. It's about achieving success for your business, and don't let the tail wag the dog. And I talk about that quite a lot, and I say that as an angel investor, because you obviously want your businesses to succeed.
Yes, of course, yeah, and kind of tying on the back of that, sales was a massive part of your role at ROI, right?
Huge.
Yes. Yeah. And I saw a fantastic picture of you on LinkedIn in a suit and tie at a road. It must have been like a roadshow event, or
that was an exhibition.
Yeah, an exhibition.
Really long time ago. Yeah.
Yes. So I guess for founders out there who perhaps haven't really been salesy or had to sell anything in the past, but have this idea, they've built it, and are now finding themselves in a position where they kind of need to sell it to people. Finally. What would be your words of wisdom?
In fact, funnily enough, I've got a meeting with one of my co-founders tomorrow about this. Generally speaking, if you look at mature businesses, there is, most businesses are partnerships. You guys, and generally speaking, the model works where you've got somebody dealing with front of house sales, customer success, we'll call it whatever you want, and you've got somebody else who's looking after the factory, which is, how many roles have we got? How many candidates have we got? How many people are we putting in for interviews? What's the quality of those candidates? That's pretty age old, and it works. My advice to founders is, and I see this a lot. I really feel for solo founders. And in fact, I could have founded Trimontium on my own easily. I actually have brought co-founders in, A, because it's fun, and B, because you need diversity. And I see within our cohorts, I see a lot of solo founders. Non-technical and technical is really tough. It's really tough, and I really, really feel for those guys. Those solo founders are the ones who actually reach out to me more than anyone. It's lonely. I mean, it's really lonely, and you've only got so many strengths. Yes, you'll be the world's most gifted techie. Yes, you'll be the world's most amazing salesman. It's how do these founders operate when you need to embrace areas that aren't your core skill set if you've not got a co-founder.
That's a great piece of advice, and again, something that's been said a few times on the podcast, which is like understand your skill set, find out your gaps, and hire in with those that you don't have, right?
I mean, it's cheesy, but be the dimmest guy in the room. But it takes a lot to be able to do that. And again, it's one of those sort of awfully trite sayings, but it's so true. Just you've got to embrace your weaknesses. I am not bad at sales. I am awful operationally. My COO within ROI Single View was just amazing. I miss Karen to this day. In fact, the whole journey put her into retirement, literally. But I knew I couldn't do it. So just bring amazing people in to complement your weaknesses.
Brilliant piece of advice. And look, last question, because I'm conscious of the time. So much, we might have to do like a 2.0 version of this podcast. People out there who have an idea and say, look, I want to build something, I want to create something, I want to sell it. What would be your advice to them?
Number one, just follow your passion. Again, it sounds cheesy, but I've yet to meet a successful founder who wasn't genuinely passionate about what they were trying to do. Number two, it is 99% of the world is going to say no, it's impossible. Pardon my French, but fuck them. And number three, it is, just do it. It's going to hurt. It's going to be horrendous. It's going to be super painful. Nothing worthwhile comes without hard work.
Brilliant, Mark. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Cool.
You've been great to speak to, and really excited to keep track of this pivot from Trimontium and see how amazing it goes.
Definitely.
Yeah, thanks.
And that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Anything we talked about will be linked in the show notes, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll catch you on the next one.